Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome into this webinar today, a peek into this child's brain. I'm sure you all know me most of the time because I think I have given a lot of webinars. My name is Masarat Tawawala, founder member, director of Sundarji's Global Academia, and also CEO of Suyog Sundarji Group of Institutes. And under our banner, we have about 5 institutes, that is an inclusive kindergarten, a teachers training college recognized by NCTE, an early intervention center at Wagholi, Shankar Shaikh Road and Mamadwadi, and of course, a full-fledged CBSE inclusive school at Wagholi by the name of Suyog Sundarji Wisdom School. We also run a full-fledged special education 1-year certificate course in special education, a skill development course, along with Morris Foundation. So this is a gist of our institute. Before we begin, let's have a few ground rules. It's going to be a very interactive session. We want you to talk. We want you to interact in the chat box because that's the new norm of the virtual world. I'm going to give you 30 seconds and I'm going to ask you, what do you know about the child's brain? Quickly, in a word or in a sentence or 2 lines, whatever you know about the child's brain, please write it down for me to see it. So here goes the time. Actually, 30 seconds for you. So let me tell you something about the child's brain and your brain. All of you agree that the brain is a fascinating, awesome organ. It's one of the most beautiful organs that we have in our body. And why is it fascinating? Because like a computer and a supercomputer, your brain is also the supercomputer of your body. It's the best thing that you have. And of course, you have to take care of it. But how many of us take care of this most fascinating, awesome organ? Not only it's awesome, but it's the best organized. I'm sure you all are used to the computers, tablets, and a whole lot of things. You know how beautiful is a laptop and a desktop organized? But your brain is 100 times better organized than any computer in the world. So you can imagine the complex function it does. Let's compare your brain with just the brain of the computer. The computer has hardware, it has software, it has memory, it has RAM, it just gets depleted your memory, you add on to it, so you upgrade the computer. Same way you download files in the computer, same way, same things are happening in the brain, but at a faster speed than the computer, at more efficient manner than the computer. And when I delve into this webinar along with you, I'm sure you will understand why I keep on stressing that it's such a fascinating, awesome organ. It's so beautifully organized that even a slight bit of hiccup anywhere in the brain is noticed in different forms of things. And why do people say, why do all the educators right from 17th century says that 98% of the brain develops before 6 years? You mean that the brain stops developing in adulthood? Or is it when the child is born or it's in the mother's womb, there's no development? Mind you, there is development. The primitive brain is there. When the child is born, there is the primitive brain. But within the first 6 years, what we need to say is the connections that the neuron makes, the brain cells make, are at a lightning speed, which does not happen in adulthood. So that is what we keep on saying. For a parent, for a teacher to understand that when we say that 0 to 6 are the best years, you have to do everything for this brain. Nothing should go wrong. It is because of the neurons that make connection. I will show you beautiful videos and I will take you through the matter. So 3 things very clear: awesome organ, best organized, better than your supercomputer, and of course 98% of the brain develops before 6 years. Please hold on to this important information because the next few slides are based on this. Now, what is This brain architecture, definitely you've got the brain, you've got it from your parents, everything is there inside. But this brain architecture does not develop unless you have experiences, enriching experiences. Mind you, the word enriching is very important. These experiences have to be just beautiful, positive, reinforcing, and making you feel happy. Now, who can give you these experiences? First, the parent, because till 2 years the child is with the parent. Then, of course, the early childhood facilitators. So very important. Our NEP also says that the foundation years are going to be very, very important. And of course, the caretakers. Now, who are these caretakers? It could be grandparents, it could be grandmom, grandfather, uncles, aunts, or any caretaker the child is with. But the healthy brain development will take place only on the basis of enriching experiences. No experiences, neurons, the brain cells, which are called neurons, are not going to make those connections. They're going to die a natural death. Very important. That's why the first 6 years, the kindergarten years, the early years are so very important in the child's life. Let's go on to the next. First 100 days are very crucial. What do we mean by first 100 days? That is when the child is born. For the first 3 months, no brain injury. The child cannot afford any brain injury because the skull is very soft. The brain is very, very primitive. It's born with just 25% of development. And those 100 days will help the child's brain to develop into a healthy brain architecture. So that's very important. Stimulation and interaction. Very, very important is every stimulation you give the child, whether you're waving of hand, whether you're smiling, whether you're connecting with the child, whether you're hugging the child, whether you're cuddling the child, whether you're breastfeeding the child, whether you're playing with a rattle, it has to be stimulation for your brain. It has to be the best of interaction. Otherwise, the child will develop toxic stress. Toxic stress is very bad for the brain. We will come on to it. So these two words, stimulation and interaction with caring adults. Look at the word caring. It is not with a caretaker who doesn't like the child. The child definitely understands, and the brains get these positive signal that the stimulation I'm getting, whether it's smiling or whether it's changing my nappy or whether it's bathing me or whether whatever is being done to me is very positive and I'm stimulated. Even a 2-day-old child is stimulated, and that's how the brain develops. Every positive interaction with parents, children, peers, and of course the teachers help the brain to develop into a better brain. Play interaction. If parents are there with me, I would want you to understand this, that the play is the architecture of future brain development. You need to let your child play, whether it's an organized play, free play, passive play, or just playing with his toys for hours. Because in that playing, he's doing a whole lot of things which you do and I don't understand. He's estimating, he's doing sequencing, he's doing patterning, he's thinking, he's reasoning, he's imagining, he's doing so many things. He's finding solutions for his problems. That is true play. So you can imagine that play is so very important. And why in kindergarten we let the children play with role play, we do play construction, explorative play, artistic play, aesthetic play. These 12-15 categories of play cannot be deprived to a child for the first 6 years. No play, no neuron stimulation, no neuron stimulation, no developing a healthy brain. And the most important is minimum stress and distress to the brain. What do I mean by minimum stress? Positive stress is healthy. Suppose if the child has to learn the rules of the game, or child has to reach for a rattle and he keeps on crawling and reaching out, that's a positive, healthy stress. Because the architecture of the brain is getting used to problem solving, that I need to crawl 2 steps to reach out for that rattle. I need to run around To find my friend, that's positive stress, but it's a minimum stress. What is distress? Which increases the stress for the brain. Any kind of negative influence on the brain, loss of one parent. It can be made up by a grandfather, grandmother, but neglect to the child, keeping the child alone for hours and in the crying state, or keeping with a caretaker who doesn't care for the child. I know we are living in a 21st century, and I understand how important it is for the parents to go out to work. Fine, but you need to give that quality stimulation, quality interaction, lot of play interaction. And whoever is the caretaker, whether it's in a daycare, the child, or whether it's at home, the kind of stimulation has to continue. So distress to the brain cannot be there. Distress in form of neglect, distress in form of keeping the child crying, distress in form of the child being totally on his own, nobody to give him food, malnutrition, all that is distress to the brain. And it won't show immediately, but the child will have a lot of mental problems later on, lot of health issues, lot of addiction later on, and lot of behavioral problems. So if you remember, if anybody has a problem in adolescent or when a child is 14 years or even in adult life, the first thing when you go to a psychologist, they will say they'll go back to your childhood history. And that childhood history is extremely important. So they'll ask the parent, what was it that happened in the childhood? That is why we say that the brain architecture, the first few years are extremely important. Let's go on further. All of us know, all of us have seen this brain of ours. You've seen it in photographs, in your laboratory, if you've been a science student or in school. And this is the basic knowledge. There are two halves. That's for our knowledge. But believe me, there's nothing like two halves of the brain. This is the way we are learning it. Okay, so we have the left brain and we have the right brain. And we know left is controlled by right and right is controlled by left. And there is a midline brain, which is very important for us. So the midline activities that we do in the first 6 years, 0 to 6 years, whether it's hopping from left to right, writing from left to right, all the midline activities strengthen the architecture of the brain. So you realize that all your play interactions, which have left to right, jumping, twisting, yoga, asanas, physical movement, climbing on the jungle gym, coming down the midline activities, drawing a line, and across those lot of midline activities are extremely important for the basic architecture of the brain to develop. This is the knowledge which all of us possess. Let's go on to let's dwell a little deeper into it. So your mid is your connector, it's your bridge. All of us know that the brain is as soft as a sponge. And just imagine when the child is born with it, how soft it must be. It's softer than a marshmallow also. That soft is the brain. That is why the child cannot have trauma to the brain at least the first 3 months. We all know that it's got its wrinkles, gray matter. We know it's little pinkish in color. The gray matter gives the gray color and the white matter gives the white color. And it usually weighs 3.5 pounds. This is just for you teachers and parents, very simple. Of course, the brain chemistry is not as simple as we are talking about, but I'm just making it simple because I want my parents to understand that why this kindergarten foundation years are so very important. Let's go on to the next slide. So everybody knows that the newborn brain is very, very primitive. It looks like a brain of a little small animal. And look at the adult brain. It definitely looks very different. So how does this primitive brain develop into the adult brain? We've just talked about the neurons. It's the neurons that will develop this brain into what this brain looks like. So let's go on to the next slide and see different primitive brain size. So at birth, the brain has only grown to 25% of its adult size. I'm sure that on your screen, you will see that in 25 days, the brain is this much developed. 35 days, then 40 days. Look slowly, steadily, 100 days, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months. By the child, the 1 year old. And by the time he's reached 3 years, the brain has reached 80% of its adult size. 0 to 3 years, that's nearly 1,000 days. But within 1,000 days, the brain has reached 80% of its adult size. So you can imagine that how fast is the growth? To reach 98%, it is just another 3 years, and the 98% brain is developed by 6 years. So 0 to 6 years, if 98% of the brain develops, now you can imagine how fast is the growth. And that is why these formative years, foundation years, are so extremely important for the healthy brain development. Healthy is not only by eating good food, but healthy is by 2 words: stimulation, interaction, and play. For the brain architect to grow and to become healthy, the child needs these 3 things. The brain only needs stimulation, positive stimulation, positive, lots and lots of interactions, and lot of play interactions, and very less distress to the brain, very less toxics to the brain. Let's go a little further. So now let's start with the main topic. This was just the preliminary that I needed to tell you. A peek inside the child's brain. I'm going to support it with a lot of videos so you will understand. But first, let me explain you very simple layman's term. I've got a lot of my trainees with me today from my Teachers Training Institute. And I want to tell you, trainees and parents and teachers, that all of us know that our brain is of cell bodies. Those cell bodies are called neurons. You can see this picture of a neuron. The cell body and the neuron looks as if it's got fibers. Each neuron has an extending fibers. So those thin lines you see, those are the fibers. Just for a common man, you have to remember that your brain has lot and millions and trillions of cells, and they are called neurons. You just have to remember that. You are not a neuroscientist, or you're not a neurophysician, or not a neurologist. For you, is okay. Each neuron has a fiber. So what those thin lines that you see coming out of the cell, they are called fibers of the cell. Each tiny cell has this fiber, and that fiber is called axon. Actually, there's a lot of scientific knowledge to it and a lot of technical jargon, which I can tell you, oh, this axon is a fiber, it has white in color. I'm removing all the technical details for you. So at the end of each axon, you can see these branches coming out, the 2 branches. At the end of each axon, these branches are called synapse. This word is very important for all of us, whether layman, whether a teacher, whether a trainee, because it is through this the neurons make connection. So I want you to understand, can you make any guesses in the chat box? How many neurons do they have in our brains when a child is born, or how many neurons are there? Anybody can tell me from the chat box? In the chat box. So let's test your knowledge. Let's have a little interactive session. So I want you to write down in the chat box how many of you know the number of neurons, an approximate guess that there are there in the brain. So what is the number of brain cells that we have? Okay. So there are some wild guesses. Yes, but it's much beyond the wild guesses than I can tell you. So before I tell you the number of neurons that are there, which are like 100 millions of neurons, I just want you to get these 3 things very clear. So the cell bodies in the brain are called neuron. Each neuron has a fiber called axon. And at the end of each axon, the shoots that you see, the branch that you see from each axon are called synapse. Now it is through these synapse that there are connections made. So just imagine the brain with so many millions and millions of neurons. And these neurons and synapses keep on wanting to make connections. And when do they make connections? They make connections only when you give a stimulation. What is stimulation? I want the child to read. I want the child to play. So I'll get him beautiful blocks. While he's playing the blocks, I'm going to talk to him. You know what? This is the red block. This is the blue block. These are long blocks. These are short blocks. Let's make something with the blocks. And constantly I will be giving him motivation. Wow, well done. This is the kind of stimulation. So stimulation is not play. But when we talk about enriching stimulation, I'll tell you the different kind of stimulations. So for these synapses to make connections, they will only make when you give them stimulation, when there are interactions and a lot of play opportunities to the child. And they say, the research says, the fastest connections are made within 6 years. This line is the key to your healthy brain architecture and development. Because the fastest connections are made within the 6 years, that is why the 6 years are so very important for the brain development. You just can't miss this time. So kindergarten facilitators, educators, you know why your role is so very important? Because you are the ones who are dealing at the primary level with the brain of the child. Rest later on, it's not that the neurons won't make connections, but it won't be as fast as what we are talking about. Every new experience that these connections make, the neurons make with each other, which I'll be showing you in your video in a minute's time, they will make a new connection. So there are billions of neurons in the brain, and each neuron is waiting to make connections. Now, connections will be made when there is stimulation, and every new stimulation will give a new experience to the neuron. And with every new experience, new connections will be made. Now, what is this new connection all about? These connections are experiences, experiences of making the child eat, experiences in making the child do things by himself. These experiences are the building blocks of the brain. Like you build a house with mortar, bricks, cement sheets, everything, and the house has a rock solid foundation. It is when you give the child experiences of different things, walking on his own. I know he'll fall. That is minimum stress for him. Walking and then guiding him, holding his hand, giving him positive motivation. That's how these new connections the neurons will make. Now, these new connections will last forever and ever. Have you heard that when you become old, when you've seen your grandmoms, they remember everything before, because whatever you learn within those few years will never be erased by the brain. That's it. Talking about repeated experiences, it is this repeated experiences which is the basic architecture of the brain. Just a minute, please. So the research says, all the neuro research connections, the neurons die a natural death. And it is so sad that there are the best neurons in your brain, but there is not many stimulation. The kindergarten program is not very good. There are not beautiful experiences. Numeracy was not done properly. Language was not given the impetus that it should give. The phonics program didn't go well, or the play program did not go well. What happens to it? The neurons die a natural death. Just a little bit about stress before I go ahead. Toxic stress increases if the neuron stimulation. So there are times when the neurons do not get stimulation, it is under stress. And toxic stress influences the neurons. So every time the video that I'm going to show you, it's so beautiful, the chemistry of the neurons in the brain. You will love to see the videos. Suddenly the neurons are lighted up when they get a stimulation. Mama has come home and she said hi, and she goes and hugs the child. That's it, stimulating for the child. He responds. It's like a serve on a tennis match. The serve and the response. Constantly there is interaction between the mother, the child, the sibling, the father, and that's what influences the neurons. So the neurons suddenly light up. You have these fairy lights in your house. Same way the neurons light up with every beautiful stimulations. And when there are no stimulations, no interactions, the neurons are off. Off means they die a natural death. Okay. So few brain facts. So on an average, how many connections are made? I have just put on an average. That doesn't mean this figure holds true. With every passing year, there is more and more research being done on brain. And because of this more and more research being done on brain, more advanced facts and figures that we get. So I'm just assuming, helping you to assume that 40,000 connections happen every second or every minute. It happens every second. You also have to understand there are trillions of billions of cells in your brain. None of the cells are alike. Do you know that? There are 10,000 different types of neurons in the brain. You can imagine how amazing it is for the kids. That so many neurons in the brain, none of them are alike. Most of them are different from each other. And all of them are waiting to make a connection. Only 5 minutes without oxygen can cause complete brain damage to the baby. Only 5 minutes. So we hear a lot of children, a lot of mothers who have gone through labor pains, oxygen reaching less to the brain. And then we come in with a lot of disabilities or comorbidities. So that crucial is oxygen for the brain. So let's come to the main topic. Infants have approximately 100 billion neurons. You can imagine in that 3.5 pound, 100 billion neurons. So you can imagine they are they're scampering out there to make connections. And approximately 63 trillion connections are made on an average in a child's brain. Approximately 85,000 neurons die every day. Every day. That is one neuron every second. So you can imagine you see this picture of a neuron and you see those axons and you see that the red and the white, the black have made connections and they're waiting to make. That's what they do all the time in the brain. The brain chemistry is very unique. I told you it's better than the supercomputer also in the world. And relatively, my dear friends, brain science is very new, just 30, 40 years old that we are researching into it. But it would be very amazing to hear that our educators like Froebel, Gijubai Badeka, all of them, Maria Montessori, talked about brain neurons, interaction and play being a very important part of brain development. They spoke about it about 200-300 years back. That's so important. We were amazed when we read about Froebel and we read about Maria Montessori and Gijubai, who's our very own educationist, early childhood educator from Gujarat, who has talked about brain chemistry at that time. Let's go a little further. So many new neurons die every minute because they cannot make connections. I'm stressing this point time and again for you to understand how important is it to make connections. And of course, only stimulations will make connections. And what does this stimulation come from? This stimulation comes from your environment. So you have this environment in front of you. The child, imagine a child in the house, on the playground, in a school. He gets information from all his senses. His eyes are seeing something very beautiful, the teacher showing him, the mother showing him. He feels it. The skin is touching it suddenly and he's hearing it. So his teacher is showing him a beautiful apple. She's cutting it in front of him. The Same thing, and he's touched it, he has eaten it, he has felt it, he's made the connection with his neurons in the brain very quickly at a lightning speed. You can't even imagine how fast it goes. And he's formed a new connection saying, oh, I know now what this apple looks like. I have tasted it. I know it's hard. I know it's red from outside. I know it's white from inside. I know it has tiny seeds. So the neurons which made that connections have taken information from the environment at a lightning speed, processed it, told the neurons that this is what it is. This is my new information. I've got it from my parents. I've got it from my teachers. I've got it. I'm stimulated it and I've made a new schema. Schema is an information and I've stored it in some part of the brain. That is how they keep on building up with new information all the time. Now suddenly if I see a tree, an apple tree with a lot of 3 apples on it, now I've gone back to my neurons in the brain. It happens so fast that the child, and you can't even imagine, nobody's telling you, go back to the neurons, do this. It just happens. That's the beauty of the brain. It says, okay, you've seen an apple tree and you've seen apples. So he goes back and understands, oh, my teacher, my mother has brought a basket full of apples. I had seen these apples in the market. He removes from his memory the market, the apples in the classroom, the apples at home, and apples and the new apples that he sees on the tree. One more new connection is made. So now his schema is expanded. So apples grow on a tree. I know whether the apples come from, and I know when they come from home, it has come from the market. See, like the house that we build up, the brain is building up. It's like it's got new stimulations, it's got new information, he's utilized. But now this new information, if nobody gives him that beautiful interaction, is he going to understand? No. Then he does not receive any signals. He does not receive information from the environment. His senses don't pursue that information. Then those neurons cannot make any connections. Okay. So before I go, I've talked to you so much about the neurons. At this point of time, I'm going to show you a video about how the neurons make connection. So let's look at this video. I'm going to shift a little and you'll have to bear up with me.
A child's experiences during the earliest years of life have a lasting impact on the architecture of the developing brain. Genes provide the basic blueprint, but experiences shape the process that determines whether a child's brain will provide a strong or weak foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. During this important period of brain development, billions of brain cells called neurons send electrical signals to communicate with each other. These connections form circuits that become the basic foundation of brain architecture. Circuits and connections proliferate at a rapid pace and are reinforced through repeated use. Our experiences and environment dictate which circuits and connections get more use. Connections that are used more grow stronger and more permanent. Meanwhile, connections that are used less fade away through a normal process called pruning. Well-used circuits create lightning-fast pathways for neural signals to travel across regions of the brain. Simple circuits form first, providing a foundation for more complex circuits to build on later. Through this process, neurons form strong circuits and connections for emotions, motor skills, behavioral control, logic, language, and memory during the early critical period of development. With repeated use, these circuits become more efficient and connect to other areas of the brain more rapidly. While they originate in specific areas of the brain, the circuits are interconnected. You can't have one type of skill without the others to support it. Like building a house, everything is connected, and what comes first forms a foundation for all that comes later.
So I'm sure now you must have got a better idea what I was talking about the connections. This video will help us to understand how important are those neurons and connections and how it is made. Okay, a little on to the different areas of brain and what kind of functions do they do. So the brain areas for basic functions exist at birth. Even when the child is born with it, with primitive brain, the basic functions are there. What do I mean by basic functions? He can hear and he can see reasonably well. Little blurred, but he can reasonably well can see. That is why his hearing is better than his visual when he is at birth. So if you feel that the child is looking at you and smiling, no, he's hearing your voice and he's smiling. So auditory is better developed than visual at birth. And higher brain functions become possible as the brain grows. Just give me a minute. We need to change the slides a minute because we've got. So I'm going to give you another video at this point of time for you to understand the architecture of the brain also.
Science tells us that the experiences we have in the first years of our lives actually affect the physical architecture of the developing brain. This means that brains aren't just born, they're also built over time based on our experiences. Just as a house needs a sturdy foundation to support the walls and roof, a brain needs a good base to support all future development. Positive interactions between young children and their caregivers literally build the architecture of the developing brain. Building a sturdy foundation in the earliest years provides a good base for a lifetime of good mental function and better overall health. So just how is a solid brain foundation built and maintained in a developing child? One way is through what brain experts call serve and return interactions. Imagine a tennis match between a caregiver and a child, but instead of hitting a ball back and forth across a net, various forms of communication pass between the two, from eye contact to touch, from singing to simple games like peekaboo. These interactions, repeated throughout a young person's developing years, are the bricks that build a healthy foundation for all future development. But another kind of childhood experience shapes brain development too, and that's stress. Good kinds of stress, like meeting new people or studying for a test, are healthy for development because they prepare kids to cope with future challenges. Another kind of stress, called toxic stress, is bad for brain development. If a child is exposed to serious ongoing hardships like abuse and neglect, and he has no other caregiver in his life to provide support, the basic structures of his developing brain may be damaged. Without a sturdy foundation to properly support future development, he is at risk for a lifetime of health problems, development issues, even addiction. It's possible to fix some of the damage of toxic stress later on, but it's easier, more effective, and less expensive to build solid brain architecture in the first place. One of the things building sturdy brain architecture supports is the development of basic emotional and social skills, an important group of skills which scientists call executive function and self-regulation, can be thought of like air traffic control in the child's mental airspace. Think of a young child's brain as the control tower at a busy airport, all those planes landing and taking off, and all of the support systems on the ground simultaneously demand the controller's attention to avoid a crash. It's the same with a young child learning to pay attention, plan ahead, and remember and follow lots of rules. Like all of us, kids have to react to things happening in the world around them, while also dealing with worries, temptations, and obligations on their mind. As these demands for attention pile up, air traffic control helps a child regulate the flow of information, prioritize tasks, and above all, find ways to manage stress and avoid mental collisions along the way. Having this ability is a necessity for positive and level mental health. Developing effective air traffic control, overcoming toxic stress, and building solid brain architecture are things kids can't do on their own. And since strong societies are made up of healthy, contributing individuals, it's up to us as a community to make sure all young people have the kinds of nurturing experiences they need for positive development. To build better futures, we need to build better brains.
Yeah. So this is what we are going to talk about. Today now, our stress will be on talking about the different areas of the brain. I was just telling you that the basic functions exist at birth. That is, you can hear, the child can hear very well, see reasonably well, but not absolutely well. And the higher functions start developing, and within the first 3 years, most of the functions have developed, and by 6 years, 98% of the functions are developed. Now, if you have to develop all these functions in the front part of your brain, let's not talk about technicalities, just like simple things, abstract thinking, problem solving, reasoning, all these things, organizing, motor functions, executive functions. How are you going to develop so much in 6 years? Now, this is going to come with a beautiful interplay program at your kindergarten level, as early childhood educators, or at home, because home environment is extremely important. How do we develop abstract thinking? By giving child activities. What comes next? What if this happens? What if there is a stone? How different ways will you use this stone? Its stone is not only for throwing, but it can become a paperweight. You can push it up on the tree and see that an apple falls down. Abstract thinking. What comes next? Showing 2 pictures of a clothesline or a washing machine, and what will happen to the washing machine if there's a breakdown. Problem solving. This comes at home when the child is doing little block play and suddenly all his blocks have gone down. He needs to know that there is a problem on hand. His blocks keep on falling, but if he has to build a strong foundation, his few blocks down has to be very sturdy. So that's problem solving. If he has to play a hide and seek game and he knows that he cannot find the person who has hidden somewhere, he needs to know that is the problem. Now, how is he going to solve that problem? Reasoning. He needs to reason himself every time with little things, that if I do this, this is going to happen. Reasoning comes through worksheets, experiences, talking it out, through storytelling. Goldilocks and the 3 bears. That could be a problem solving. If the bears were not this, what it could be do? What if the bears did this? Abstract thinking. So this is the frontal lobe taking care of it, and all that 6 years it has to develop. So many things we need. Executive functions, that is your cognitive functions. Entire life you will need the executive functions to survive, and the foundation is in 0 to 6 years. So now do we realize that a fantastic stimulation, interaction, play program is so very important at home and supplemented at school, and also wherever the child is with a caretaker or a daycare center or whatever it is. His motor functions, He needs to develop motor, means gross motor and finer motors, because that's going to be his foundation for the brain. So he needs to learn balancing, he needs to learn running, hopping, jumping, climbing on the jungle gym. He may do the same thing 20 times till he gets it right. It's perfectly okay. Parents get very irritated at times, and teachers also, oh, he's doing the same thing. He's just climbing the jungle gym. What's so new about it? Parents, when they take them children to the garden, they want him to experience 20 equipment, but the child just wants to go on that a particular equipment. He has something in mind which you don't know, or maybe those neurons need to strengthen that connection. He wants to be doubly sure that this is the way I'm going to climb and this is the way I'm going to go down, because those connections have to be strengthened. They cannot be loose connections. If you have a loose circuit, there's going to be an electric problem in your house, right? The lights suddenly go out. Same way, the child also needs to strengthen the connection. Reasoning cannot happen once in a blue moon. Problem solving cannot happen once in a blue moon. It has to be strengthened day in and day out over a period of time for it to become rock solid foundation of the brain. So same way, the motor functions have to be developed. The child needs a lot of time on play equipments, swinging. With swinging, he's going to learn motion. He realizes that the swing, when it goes up and it's fast, he feels little spinny, he's little giddy. No storybook can tell him that, right? What he feels when a swing goes up and down. Now for him to feel that giddiness, for him to realize that if I get down from a swing, which is very high, I'm going to have a fall and I'm going to hurt my limbs. Now, as a parent, you're going to be cautious, but sometimes I don't say that he has to fall, but he has to experience that fear that he cannot go up so high and jump from them. So this is experiences and stimulations that we are talking about. The first 6 years, the most important foundation of a strong brain is your emotional balance, your social balance, very, very important. And that's he learns in school. At home, he has my ship, my order. He has his way. Parents find it difficult. Two terrible two-sums are temper tantrums kids. But once he goes to school, he understands that he cannot scream, he cannot hit, he needs to control himself, he can laugh aloud, he can do everything, but he cannot bully, he cannot pinch. He needs to understand the other children, he needs to understand caring, sharing. He understands what is happiness, what is sadness, what is it while snatching a toy. So all that comes in school, and then it is strengthened at home, because emotionally stable child will have better experiences than an unemotional child. He learns to express himself from one word to cooing to babbling. He's learning one word, 2 words, sentences. He talks in his mother tongue, gets translated in the language of the school. So much happening. And it's language, the expression is not only through language, it is through his eyes, through his gestures, through his happiness, to his clapping, to his, kicking his feet and showing his happiness. So much to learn in the first 6 years for the executive brain to function. Organizes his thoughts on paper. Slowly, steadily, he learns to speak in some sentences which the other person can understand. So it's communication. He tries to remember facts. He learns to complete tasks. He learns to understand stories, turn and twist the stories, tell stories in his own words. Now, all this is not possible without the right kind of stimulation. So when you draw up a program at the foundation base from 0 to 6 years, why do you say that the kindergarten program or the daycare program or the mother who's interacting with the child needs to do these little activities with the kids so it strengthens the connections? Let's go on to the temporal lobe. The temporal lobe has speech, has hearing, auditory processing, behavior, emotions, fear. So what do we do for that? Again, stimulation, interaction, activities, enriching experiences, learning embedded in real life. So speech, we try and build up. The child learns the speech by imitation. He learns the speech by hearing. So the more you converse with the child, the more you spend time with the child. You can't have a kindergarten teacher only talking in monotone syllable words. Okay, this is cat, this is this. She needs to have her class come alive with her own experiences, her voice modulation, her gestures, so the child hears better and better speech for him to imitate and him to process. Auditory processing, very important. Instructions. The child needs to hear clear-cut instructions from parents and teachers for him to strengthen this part of the brain. The neurons here, like we said, no new neurons are alike. All the neurons are different and all neurons have a specific function. So maybe this neuron of yours is waiting for your auditory instructions. Clear 2 words instructions, 3 words instructions, 2 line instructions, 3 line, but clear cut instructions. Now all this, let me tell you, friends, is also the foundation of coding. Coding is a new literacy. It's going to be the new way forward for this 21st century. And if you want your child to become coders, screen-free coders, I'm not telling coders like software engineers, coding and brain have direct connection. And all the activities that you do in the early years is directly linked to the coding of the brain. So if you want your child to be a coder, excellent coders, do more of these stimulating activities. We need to understand that the child's behavior is very erratic at this stage. Now you want to bring in a stabilized behavior and put him into the world and formal schooling. A lot of behavior modification techniques you'll have to do. Lovely classroom management principles through motivation, school rules, school routines. And don't forget, dear friends and teachers, the brain loves a structure. That's how the architect of the brain is. So the child also likes a structure. It likes getting up in the morning, brushing his teeth. On some days, yes, he doesn't like it when it's a holiday. But he usually likes a structure. So now in the online classes, I see kids, they get up, they wear the uniform, they sit on that little mat and they are ready for school. They love this structure. The brain loves the structure. It's not that they love a structure because the brain knows that this is the time I'm going to get wired. This is the time I'm going to be stimulated. It's already on the light mode that I am waiting for this to occur. The temporal lobe is very important because your memory, the long-term and short-term memory. Now, how is it that things from short-term go to long-term memory? It just can't go by you saying, okay, just put it into the long-term memory. No. The connections that you make has to be strengthened. The thing that the child learns. Suppose he's learned numeral 1. He knows that now numeral 1 means 1 cat, 1 dog. Numeral 9 means 9 stones. Now this has to be strengthened. So you will do it in form of a game, or you will do it in form of a worksheet, or you will do it in form of an app, whatever it is. You give lot of examples for recap, lot of examples for strengthening to understand in totality what is numeral 9, and it means 9 boxes or 9 lollipops or whatever it is. So you've given him so many experiences, so many stimulations and variety of stimulations. You've showed him a block 9, you've shown him in newspapers, you've shown him on calendar, you've made him count flowers and fruits and bees and stones, whatever it is. So now that connections have been strengthened. And once the connection is strengthened, it goes into the long-term memory. So when a parent feels, oh, you're just doing 9 again and again, but it is we are doing it to strengthen that connection. If we do it once, after 3 days, the connection is not strengthened. So nothing is learned. Remember this. Teachers, you need to remember this. Processes what the teacher teaches. So this is very important. The brain at a lightning speed is processing all the information it gets from its environment. So the child is sitting in a class and it is hearing the bell ringing. It's hearing the noise against the teacher saying something. He's hearing that his friend has already opened his breakfast box. All this the brain is processing at lightning speed. But what it makes and remembers and what it connects is only what the child wants to do. You may give him 20 things as stimulation, but also important that that stimulation has to be of an excellent quality for the child to take in and for the neurons to observe and for the child to process that kind of an information. So whenever you present any information, it has to be in a multimodal stage. You will talk about it, you will show it also, you will give the child concrete experience also, you will move from simple to complex, from known to unknown. The concrete experiences, why do you say that the child has to feel everything that is shown in 0 to 6? He puts everything in his mouth at 0 to 6. That's how the brain is wired, from 0 to 6. Later on, do you need to see an Eiffel Tower to understand an Eiffel Tower? No. But believe me, a child will not understand an Eiffel Tower because he's never seen it, even if you describe it. So all the concrete experiences are processed best. And when those concrete experiences are processed, more connections are made. More connections, more strengthening. And more strengthening, better brains. Fight or flight. So there are times when the brain tells the kid, fight it out or run away from it. This is when the situations are scary for the child. So the child will either fight it out or run away from it. So there are many instances where the child has to decide that I have done this. Can I stand here and tell my teacher that this is what I have said? It is wrong. I know my teacher will say that. I know my mama is going to get angry. I know my dad is going to get upset about it. But he has to learn to fight and not to run away. Unless it's a fire or something like that. We do understand. The brain, the temporal lobe retains facts. That is pure facts, like I've told you, 100 billion neurons. That's just academic pure facts. But when you come to reasoning, all those executive functions is in the frontal lobe, not in the temporal lobe. Let's go into parietal lobe. That's where your sense of touch, taste, smell, temperature. So that part of the brain, those neurons take care of it. And all the sensory information that is coming in through the senses. So that lobe is very, very important for the child to understand the information that is bombarded through him. And then he processes that information. And after he processes that information, he gives you a response to it. So he's taking in information. My teacher has told me this. She's told me everything about day and night. Today we had a lesson on day and night, so I just remember it. And my teacher has told us to have dinner and then go to sleep and wear my night suit and then get up in the morning, and she's put a light and the curtains are there. He's processed the senses have taken in all this information, has processed this information in lightning speed. Now the child is going to give a response. So when the teachers will ask him or the parent will ask him, did you understand what is night that I spoke about? And if the brain has processed it properly, there will be a response. The teacher has served him information. Now for that serve, there is a response. So we always say that the architect of the brain is built in by serve and response. Constantly this serve and response takes place. It takes place with the grandparents, it takes place when the child goes out to play, it takes place in a mall, it takes place in a garden, takes place constantly. The serve and the response is going on till the child goes to sleep peacefully. He's so happy the day when his serve and response are all in its place. But if the serves and response are not in its place, then there is stress to the brain. Let's go into the occipital lobe. So you have your visual system, your visual information. So whatever you see is processed more or less by that part of the brain. Now, mind you, friends, I made it very simple for you to understand. I am not a neurologist, neither I am doing neuroscience, but I'm doing a lot of research on brain development in kids. So it is very easy for me to put it in a very simple way. There is more to this, but for you, this much information is more than enough. So the occipital goes to the visual. Everything that visually the child sees is in that lobe, is making connections in that lobe. The neurons are very active in that lobe. The words that he sees in a storybook, or the picture that he sees, or the shapes, or the worksheets, or the recognition of letters, all that is happening in this part. Now, that doesn't mean only in this part it will happen. You've already seen videos. There is dynamism. The neurons travel from here to there looking for connections. There's a lot of dynamism. But more or less, just for your understanding, I have put up this knowledge. And on any side that you'll go, it's very, very complicated. So I've just made it very, very simple for you to understand. Cerebellum, very, very important part. Now, this is where all your coordination, you see a child who cannot balance, who cannot do coordination activity, who bumps into the tables and chairs and constantly is falling down. That's the part of that brain which looks into the balance and coordination. So to strengthen this, you need to give a lot of stimulation in form of a lot of physical activity to the child. Initially, as he starts crawling, he's going to falter. He starts walking, he will falter. He's going to fall down. But then you as a parent community or the caretaker or the teacher is always there to see that he's got help. With every help, he strengthens his connections. And of course, the motivation plays a great part in helping the child to do these activities. The motivation in form of your eye contact, the motivation in form of your pat on the back, the motivation in giving him stars, the motivation in giving him reinforcers, what he likes. The reinforcers have always to be what he likes. And that's going to bring this part of the brain into a very beautiful architecture. So this cerebellum takes care of coordination, balancing, attention. You want the child, the parent wants the child to understand, listen to him when she's doing an activity with him or coloring. So this is that part of the brain which is at that time triggered to take in those connections. Your rhythm movement, your clapping to a tune, your musicality is coming from this part of the brain. These two words are very important, proprioceptive and vestibular. So it is the movement of the body, vestibular and the balancing of the body. These two movements of the body, these two proprioceptive movements are taken care by the cerebellum. And if the child cannot balance his body or he has problem with movement, then the child has a lot of sensory need. He'll always want to rock, vestibular movement. He'll always be rocking, he'll always be spinning, and he'll always be kicking. All those things will happen. So today we are not discussing about the sensory integration or sensory dysfunction. It is usually called sensory dysfunction. So we are not going into that topic. But I just want to tell you, proprioceptive and vestibular are needs of the kid. And if they lack in this, then there is a dysfunction out there. So all the vestibular activities, you need to give him a lot of it. Simple activities, rocking, kicking the ball, throwing the ball, riding a bike. These bring in a lot of balancing activities. So now you realize that the stimulation for a healthy brain are in a lot of activities, lot of play, lot of work done at the kindergarten, lot of work done by the parents, and a beautiful program till 6 years helps the brain to develop. So this is just what I want to put in. So finally, when you see all these network of connection, all these things are happening at rapid speed. 98% of development takes place in 6 years. Your behavior is established, your feelings, your executive function, your motor sensory development. And all this will take place only by those 3 magical words. I'm repeating again, because for you to understand how important is stimulation, interaction, and play, which is a lifelong, it is not a lifelong process. It will be a lifelong process, but it is so very important from 0 to 6 years and to make it a lifelong process. So now with this, we come on to the next part, next segment of it. Till now, we've understood What is important from the brain? We've understood neurons. We've understood the fiber-like thing, axon. We've understood synapse. Synapse means connection. We've understood through 2 videos how connections are made. We've understood the number of billions of cells that are there in the brain. We've understood that no cells are alike and why these neurons are very important, what connections they make, why do we need to strengthen the connections, and how harmful is the toxic stress. I'm going to the next part. What is the key to developing child's healthy brain? There are 2 words. One is nature and one is nurture. Nature is your genetic makeup, what the child gets from the mother and the father. The father gives him chromosome, the mother gives the chromosome. The chromosomes contains genes, and those genes make up the child's nature. Nature doesn't mean your nature, the way you behave, mind you, it's not that. Nature means genetic composition. That genetic composition can not come from the environment. It can only come from the parent. It is innate. You've inherited it. It's biologically come into you. It's predetermined. The moment the child is conceived in the womb, it comes. That is your nature, your genetic composition. So that blueprint, nobody can take away from you. So the color of your hair, your eyes, the way your feelings are, the way you will behave, many things are genetic. Whether you are predisposed to diabetes or predisposed to mental illness is genetic, okay? But with the help of nurture, that's your environment, you can not change your genetic makeup, but you can make best use of your genetic makeup. So you have innate abilities are already given to you. Nature has already been given to you by your parents. Now with that, the environment outside, that's nurture. Your experiences, your interactions will have a great influence to the brain. So let me tell you a fascinating research. There are a lot of research. You can keep on going into it and millions of research you will see. But I'm just telling you a simple research which I just read. So there was a group of children with same kind of genetic endowment, means more or less they had same kind of genetic endowment. But one child was born, they have made a study on children born into prison by parents, by mothers who were in prison, and they did a study on those children who were born in prison. Now in prison, those children had very limited influence of nurture. Their genetic endowment was good, but they had very little influence of nurture because their parents were in the prison. Prison did not have a preschool or a beautiful environment, as you all know. The stimulations were not there. The literacy development was not there. Cognitive development was not happening. Play interactions were not happening. The children were just made out to play in the courtyard with less toys, not many stimulations, not many experiences, no people to talk to. The mothers were taken away for work. The children were under a caretaker. The caretaker used to give them a lot of stress, scream, shout, very limited nutrition program. Same kind of another experiment was done with another group of prison children in another part of the globe. Same kind of genetic endowment. But these children were given all kinds of stimulation, interactions, play interactions. They had an excellent enriching environment. They found that after in 0 to 6 years, when these children, the children of the first group, which did not get experiences and interactions, and the second group progressed tremendously later on in life. So this was done over a period of 12 to 14 years. They found the children who got the nurture, who got the better of the environment, they had less behavioral problem, they had more mental stability, they had more control over their emotions, they were more happier, they did not take to crime, there were less substance abuse in these children later on in life. But the children who were deprived of this kind of environment, underwent through a lot of toxic stress, no happiness, no interactions, no stimulation, had a lot of problems in behavior. They were irritated, they took to fighting, they took to bullying, they had a lot of, they took to drugs later on in life, and there was less mental stability. So this is how the environment can play such an important role. You may be born with a good genetic endowment, but that genetic endowment, if it's not used by nature, just dies the natural death. So they say there is an interplay, like how when you play music, you need a lot of musical notes. Same way, the nature and nurture have to interact with each other beautifully, flexibly, dynamically, together. When they interact in the most beautiful way, you will have a most beautiful, healthy brain development. And that's what is the role of the environment. Environment consists of you, me, and the parents, and the stimulations. So let's come to this part of it. The gift of brain growth is in the hands of who? I'm asking you a question today. Who is going to help us to build the most important brain architecture? So it's the teacher, it's the parents, it's the caring adults. The caring adults can be grandparents, it can be siblings. They are together going to give the child the gift of the best beautiful brain growth and architecture. Now let's see, how is this enriching environment? What is the teacher and the parent going to do to give this beautiful brain growth? First of all, a very rich language environment. We can't have parents not speaking. We can't have quiet parents. It's not that the child is going to be quiet, but the quiet parents are not going to stimulate the child. And you cannot have a parent going blah, 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 blah whole day. What the child needs is proper enriched language environment, an adult who talks in proper ways. So Jane, how are you feeling today? Are you feeling fine? You know what? Mama is very upset. She's not feeling well today. This is what I mean. Don't give the child a babyish language. Talk to him like a proper. He may not understand everything, but he's hearing you. Lot of kind of talking opportunities in school and at home. Let the child, the parent says, oh, I'm so fed up with the kid. He's non-stop talking. That's what he's supposed to do for his stimulations and connections. Lot of experiences of singing, music. Not that he listens to on the screen, the Bollywood songs and the horrible ones, which have double meaning and puns. I'm talking about nursery rhymes in loops, because that's for coding. Lot of interactions between the music teacher. Even if you do not have a music teacher, or you do not have, he needs to hear good music, and that could be screen free also. Lot of reading opportunities to the kid. Reading at bedtime, reading in school, reading corners in school, picture reading, reading words, reading sight words, talk about it, telling a story in his own way, drawing a story, mapping a story, sequencing a story. Lot of phonic instructions, lot of enrichment language environment, and different opportunities. So constantly, if you want to strengthen those connections, my friends, realize you'll have to give a lot of variety. So I'm not only going to read the same book. And if I read, I need to have voice modulation. Sometimes I'm going to read from a book. Sometimes I may just make up a story from the balcony after seeing two plants, or I may see a cat, two cats on the road, and I may make up a story. So your environment has to be varied. It has to be absolutely novel and absolutely rich. Hands-on learning. Very, very important. What does the child need at this stage? Remember, the occipital lobe and the parietal, the senses are waiting to seek a lot of information, and that information will not come by putting fingers on the lips and putting hands together. It comes when he touches, when he's curious, when he breaks things, makes it again, when he's experimenting, when he's looking out for things. all those hands-on learning, touching, feeling, doing. When he's looking at the leaves, the nature walk, the mud that he touches, the sand that he plays with, the pebbles that he plays with, those are going to have a lasting impressions on the brain. Enrich activities, a lot of activities for social development, for emotional development, activities for opportunity to mingle with the peers, the sharing activities, the block play activities, the explorative play activities, the nature walk activities. This can be done with the parent, it can be done with a teacher, it can be done with a caretaker, or it could be done with a grandmother. But every time those activities are there, don't forget to supplement it with your lovely voice, because the child needs that. Your hugs, your motivation, wow, well done, you need a high five. I have given you this activity of sorting rajma and seed. So wonderfully you did it. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy about you. Remember, the toxic brain, toxicity will come down if you use a lot of motivation in your activities. Learning embedded in real life. 0 to 6 years, take them to the farm, take them to the cattle shed, make learning in real life experiences. Take them for an equestrian walk to see the horses when you have to learn about the four-legged animal. I know that we cannot take the children to the African zoo and East Africa, but then at that time you have your national geography. So learning embedded in real life as much as you can. If you want to show that how a cobbler works, show a cobbler, get him home. I know the virtual world is very, very tough for all of us, but I hope it gets over. But because what you can give in real life, you cannot give it virtually. That is why children are going through so much of mental stress now, because there's nothing for them to feel, do, run around, play around, the bark of the trees, the touching of the leaves, the sorting with the leaves. Use everything from the environment to make learning real, embedded in real life. Everything is available. I'm sure as teachers, you've become so innovative. I know my teachers at the special school and at the kindergarten, they have absolutely become innovative. The other day, I saw an activity of counting with all the boxes and tins that were there in the house. And they could have used the same thing for construction and deconstruction, which some of them have used. So learning embedded in real life is excellent for your brain development. Hands-on, I've just spoken to you about it. Give your child the attention he seeks. I'm not saying 24/7. No child wants to be by a parent's side 24/7. But when the child wants to convey to you something, don't say next time. Don't say afterwards, because his memory is very short. He wants to tell you now. For him, it is always now. Now you have to hear me. Now you have to give it to me, because that's what the brain chemistry demands. So he comes back from school and he wants to tell you, but you are asking him, what did the teacher do in the class today? But you have never asked him, did you eat with your friends? Who was the one who was in rickshaw with you? Did you share things? What did you play today? Did you sing today? Was your music teacher in class? You are very interested in what was the numbers and language and all. And then you will ask the teacher, Aapne ye nahi sikhaya, wo nahi sikhaya. But believe me, the teachers in that 3 hours have done enough of stimulation for the child. That attention that she's given, non-divided attention. You as a parent need to set out that quality time, and at least till 6 years, when the child needs you, please be around the child. Especially to hear his cricky cracky, especially that he has so many things to, especially wants to play with you. It may be very boring for you to play the same car game again and again. But for him, it's the love of his life. And see that you're showing genuine interest. It's not that you just say, I can see you. Now you keep on playing, but you are very busy with your WhatsApp chat. That is not attention. That is, the child can see through it. You need to give that undivided attention. Maybe it's only for half an hour. Maybe it's only for 15 minutes a day. But that 15 minutes is your child's time, not the WhatsApp with your friends' time. Exponential learning, very, very important. Your hugs, your smile, your pat on the back, you're telling another parent, you know, my kid was, I'm so happy he did this. Maybe he didn't do it the best of way. Maybe he didn't say the story in the best of way. Maybe he didn't say the story in fluent English. Maybe he used a lot of Hindi words. But what was important is he did it. The task he did it. The concept he understood. That's what was important. Maybe he's built a small tower and he wants to show you. Please don't say, oh, the other kid built such a big tower and you still cannot build it. That's toxic to the brain. You've just taken away everything what was needed at that time. Your smile was needed, a pat on the back was needed, a hug was needed. Oh, I loved what you did today, rather than saying, I wish you could have made a bigger tower. That's what not that he wanted to see in you. Play interactions. I've talked so much about play. Play is child's learning. In play, he is the hero in the drama of education. You have to understand it is only play which will help him to make the connection strengthen. Now, I don't mean just leaving him on to play. So there are a lot of categories of play. Passive play, unoccupied play, occupied play, playing with the playmates, playing board games, playing on a cycle, that's also play. So different play interactions are needed. So it could be under the guidance, it could be without guidance, it could be rules games, games with rules, it could be just letting the child be on their own, it could be in a sandpit, it could be anywhere and everywhere. Play does not have a time, it does not have a specific area, it can happen anywhere and everywhere. So to end this a little bit, I want to tell you, I've just made this for parents, caregivers, adults, and also our early childhood facilitators. The more stimulation you give will strengthen connections and it will build up a very positive relationship. Okay, stimulations will make and strengthen connections. It will establish quality in the brain. It will give comfort to the brain. It will give security to your child. And last and not the least, it will build the most positive relationship that you are seeking for years to come. So friends, 0 to 6 years, you just can't discard. And of course, add 1 more year to it, 7 and 8, because sometimes the child is slow at picking up. Sometimes the child needs that time. And that's what our NEP has said. 3 to 8 years, they have made the foundation block. I'm so happy that this committee, the national NEP that has come out, the 2020, is going to be a game changer for the early childhood years and especially for the foundation years. Once more, I'm just summarizing the teacher's role because it's so very important. A lot of opportunities for play. Make them do things over and over again. Have your circle time activities which strengthens whatever you want to say. Have a lot of emotional play. Let the child have a lot of emotional stability. Give him various experiences for those 5 years that the child is with you. Encourage new skills coming up, whether it's reading or pre-reading activity, pre-maths activity, or whether it's coding, or whether it's explorative play, or whether it's skills of singing. Provide a lot of interesting things. Your interesting activities are the key to the brain development. Please don't take your role very lightly because you are the brick builder for the brain. And let the child explore anything and everything that he wants to do. Celebrate their efforts as if it is the last day. Wow, this is fantastic. You are a winner. That is what is going to bring down the toxicity of the brain. Give him a safe, stable, consistent, and a secure, and the most important, predictable environment. School should be a safe place. They cannot be screaming, shouting, bias is going towards the kid, bringing down the kid, ridiculing the kid. You cannot be doing that. Safety doesn't mean that I have a lovely school infrastructure and a beautiful boundary wall and have a beautiful garden. Safety doesn't mean that. Safety is internal safety to the kid. Is the kid happily running out of his van and coming to school? Is he so happy to meet his teacher? Or is he making the sad face and entering the walls of your school? Stable is be a stable teacher. Don't throw temper tantrums. Don't have your whims and fancies. Lock your 360 degrees tensions at home and enter school. Have this smile, which is very genuine. Constantly have that smile. Be consistent in your approach. Today I'm a teacher who's very happy. Tomorrow I don't want to do anything. I'm screaming, shouting. Third day I'm a different person. You cannot be that. Same goes with a parent. Your house should be safe. You cannot have parents quarreling, you screaming with your in-laws, talking. The child is seeing this. It's a stress for him. It's a stress. He wants to run and hide somewhere. You have to be giving the child that stable, safe environment, consistent environment. Dear parents, very important for you. Secure environment. What do I mean by secure? Security means not that I have a beautiful house with gadgets controlling over my home. Alexia is there, video camera is there. That's not secure environment. Secure is, are you as a parent, as a couple, secure for the child? Or is the child being exposed to abusive language? Is the child being abused at home? Are you abusing each other? Is the father beating the wife? And is there a lot of foul language happening? Is there a lot of fights among the members in the house? Then that environment is not secure. Then it's no sense having the most beautiful house. And most important, the brain chemistry needs the most predictable environment. Predictable with lot of variations. So I know that this is my room. My parents are happy in the hall. This is my dining place. This is the place where I can go down to play. Predictable environment with stimulation, with very good stimulation. There has to be regular times, very, very important. Your break time cannot be 9 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock. Once in a blue moon, yes. Regular times for nap, sleep, going down to play. The child is getting into a lovely mode. And when it gets into this regular, consistent environment, predictable environment, there is less possibility of the child having erratic behavior. So today we know that to this time the child sleeps. Very good. He's got a break. Now when he gets up, he has to have a snack. He has to have his cup of milk. Of course, his milk can vary. Today it's pink and tomorrow it's something, or then instead of a milk, there's a milkshake. Instead of a milkshake, there is something else. But there is something that he needs to eat. He goes down to play for 2 hours, 1 hour, 3 hours, whatever it is. There's a predictable time to come home. Sun sets, the child is at home because he does not understand the concept of time. And then there is dinner time when everybody meets. And then there is a reasonable, predictable time that when I need to go off to bed. Very, very important is sleep, exercise, and routine. And exercise, I really mean physically draining the child. The more physical input the child gets, the better he is in his connection. And of course, I want to add here, how important is yoga to the child, growing child's brain? I can't tell you. It's just that it is so very important. It doesn't mean the child joins yoga class at 2 years. No, I'm talking about just simple breathing techniques. So more oxygen goes to the brain. I'm talking about calming techniques. I'm talking about few asanas that the child can do. The flexibility in his body. Very important that we start the routine in school during circle times with this. Comfort children. If you don't comfort the children, whether it's at the daycare or at home or in school, he is going to be a nervous wreck, very insecure. And when he's insecure, the brain is under toxins. And you know, when the toxin starts, what happens? when they are released in the brain, these chemicals of stress are released in the brain, the acid starts producing from the stomach. The acid produces from the stomach, it keeps on going up and the brain chemistry completely shuts down. It takes us 2-3 hours again for the child to come back to the normal mode. It's not that immediately he will be. No learning will take place. The child will smile if you'll tickle him. But the child will smile when you tickle him with minimum stress, which is good for him. But if he's undergone hell, then you have seen children brooding and you say, oh, he's locked up in his room. Today he's not smile. He's not eating anything. Usually adolescents have a lot of stress because of growing years and puberty. So do young kids. Make everyday experiences pleasurable. Every day should be a special day for the kid. Very, very important. As parents, as teachers, we have this immense responsibility on our shoulder to see that every day is a special day for the child. I'm winding up with this 10 foods for the child's brain development. Of course, there's a lot of research now, and of course, you'll see better things. But this is what is most important. Almond, yes. Even if you don't have almonds, it could be your shingdana. It could be your simple groundnut, same quality. Amla, because it has anything that has vitamin C, is extremely important. Berries can be of all kinds. Not the expensive berries, the cheaper berries also could do. The gooseberries, of course, in certain countries you get a lot of berries. Berries grow in the wild also, edible berries. Lot of leafy vegetables. You cannot account that fruits, the colorful diet that you give the child has to be colorful. So there is orange color through carrots, there is green, there is black, there are lentils. All of those are extremely important for the brain. Yogurt, but not the sweetened yogurt, not with flavors. Just simple yogurt where you can just add a little sugar if you feel it's very, very sour, but not otherwise. Lots and lots of water. Your body is 3/4 of water, and so is your brain will need that. Lot of omega fatty acid 3, so you get it in fish. But if you're a vegan and you're not, you can have jackfruit, you can have tofu. Omega fatty acid 3 is very important. Proteins, building blocks for the brain. Lots of these are required for a child's growing brain. I would want to end this, and of course I would take in question and answers. I would say that many cognitive psychologists sees the brain as computers, but every single brain is absolutely individual, both in its development and in the way it encounters the world. So it's not a computer. That's the basic difference. A computer has same kind of configurations. If you buy in lot and if you want this configurations, prototype. But we cannot have a prototype of the brain. The brain does not have prototype. No two blueprints are same. Can you imagine? So it's very, very important that we take care of this. And if you want later on a society with absolutely healthy individuals, you will have to work from 0 to 6 years. That's what my slide says. The attention and environment you provide shapes your child's brain development not only for 6 years, but for the entire life. So when you see individuals, my dear friends, somebody very happy-go-lucky, somebody who does everything right, somebody who's more stable, more secure in their adolescence and later on in life, and you wonder how this child has grown into such a beautiful individual. Go back to the 0 to 6 years and ask the parent and ask those caretakers, ask those teachers who have done a lot of work on that child. I would end with this. James Prescott has given us a beautiful concordatation. The brain is highly immature at birth and is dependent only on sensory stimulation for normal growth, development, and function. Sensory stimulation is like a great nutrient. Without it, the brain does not develop or function normally. So I'm sure at the end of this 2.5 hours, we've understood what a common person, a common early childhood educator has to understand. A common person, a common parent, a common caretaker has to understand. And why is this so very important? Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed giving this lecture. I'm going to show you one more video and then I will take in the questions. Thanks.
These ordinary people are building brains. It takes a little bit of skill, a little bit of luck, and a lot of teamwork. As you build a brain, you're going to learn how environments, experiences, and genes act together to shape brain development. Ready? It's the brain architecture game. Before we start playing, let's learn some brain science. To help with that, we'll need a scientist.
Our topic today is the brain. We often think of the brain as just one thing, but really, it's like a lot of little brains, all inside one organ. Just like a house with many rooms, each room has a different function. Brain cells are the building material. What happens is that experiences you have cause brain cells to connect together, like a house that's getting wired up. Basic sensory abilities like vision and hearing are the first to get wired up. And these act like a foundation for other abilities to be built on. As you age, the right experiences build new rooms. You learn how to walk and talk, and eventually how to do more complex things like arithmetic and planning and reasoning. These last rooms are still getting wired up in your teens and beyond. And that's great news because it means that parents, teachers, coaches, and all of us who spend time with kids can influence the development of these abilities right into a person's 20s. But it's all built on the foundation that began in the earliest years.
So what's going on inside the brain that causes certain abilities?
Basic instructions to tell cells to connect to each other, but it's experiences like all that time spent on peekaboo, learning to read, or just playing together that cause certain circuits to be wired and strengthened during development. Wiring that's used less does not become as strong, and it gets pruned away. So it's up to caregivers and communities to make sure young people have positive brain-building experiences at all ages of their development. Of course, not all kinds of experiences are helpful. Really bad experiences that are intense, frequent, or prolonged, like violence, ongoing neglect, cause stress that's so serious it can have a toxic effect on brain development. A brain experiencing toxic stress will have weaker architecture, and that can lead to a whole range of problems later in life. Sometimes we have experiences that could turn toxic for the brain or not, depending on who's around to give support. Imagine a tragedy like death of a parent. A child left to grieve without adult support will suffer severe stress that lasts a long time. But if caring adults work with the child to soothe the body's stress response and teach coping skills, the experience won't be toxic for the brain. When caregivers prevent severe stress experiences from turning toxic, scientists call it tolerable stress. So, communities and caregivers are very important, whether they're actively encouraging healthy brain development or working to prevent toxic stress from harming the brain. These interventions are very important for the long-term health and well-being of both individuals and the community as a whole. That last point is what I want you to think about when you play the brain architecture game, because as you'll learn soon enough, brains don't build themselves. It's group work. So get all the help you can and go build some brains.
Okay, newly educated brain experts, are you ready to play? Your goal in the brain architecture game is to build your brain as tall as possible. You want a strong brain too, so it won't collapse under the weight of life's stresses.
To an end of our webinar, a peek into the child's brain. I hope participants, you must have profited today by this knowledge. And I'm not able to see the chat box, so I'm going to ask the presenter to read the questions for me. Yeah, so we have a question that where it is told that, yes, what happens if the brain does not respond? Well, the brain has to respond. So there is no two ways that the brain will not respond. Under no circumstances, it just locks itself and goes to sleep. Now it will respond individually. Each one will respond. Each child's brain will respond onto the kind of stimulation that you're going to give each child. It's very important. I've discussed this again and again, that is why it is very important that you give in right kind of stimulation. The neurons, for it to die, it happens when there is no connection, and it's called pruning. So over a period of time, the neurons keep on dying, and that's okay because there are always excess neurons produced in the brain. So you have to realize that there are so many neurons produced that some of them, not some of them, 85,000 nearly die off. Now those 85 die because they could not make connections, but that doesn't mean every neuron has to make connections. The brain is wired in such a way that so many extra neurons only are produced. So you need not worry about it. But the most important thing is that your stimulations and your interactions and your play interactions has to be so, it has to be full of variety. Why? Because across all the globes, the brain has to connect. Though for our information, I just talked about the temporal and occipital and those, but for the brain to connect, there is no compartment as such. Okay, this is this and this is this, and the brain has got two halves. That's only when we learn about it. Yes, but there is a midbrain, midline activity that you need to consider. So when the neurons go across everywhere to make connections, it is very important that you have different kind of activities that we talked about, the lobes where they are taking care of it. So don't worry, the brain doesn't ever goes to sleep, but it needs rest. And that is why they say a good sleeping pattern is extremely important for the brain to rest. And it has to be a happy brain. Most important, it has to be a very happy brain. Any more questions, Fatima? Okay. I'm unable to see the chat box, so I'm just asking the presenters if there are any questions that I can take in. Somebody's asked me what happens in adult life. You mean the brain does not make connections? No, it will constantly make connections till the last day of your life. The neurons will keep on making connection. But what we said, the fastest connections are made from 0 to 6 years. Of course, connections are made even later on. In puberty, new connections will be made. In adulthood, in married life, in universities, but it's not as fast as it is. And they do not get as strengthened as they have to get. So it is 0 to 6, fastest and the best strengthening of it. And in 0 to 3, there are more concrete experiences. Later on, it's not as concrete as we grow up. So this is also what one of the questions I have answered. Somebody's asked, does this dynamic process stop? No, this dynamic process never stops. The last day till you go to your graveyard, I think this process will stop at that point of time. You also have to understand there's a lot of research still ongoing for it. And you also have to understand that later on when we talk about Alzheimer and Parkinson, it also has its root in the 0 to 6 years. We still are very nascent stage, in very raw stage about this research. But I'm sure if you read up, you will find that, when we are talking about it, the brain chemistry, it also says that every year you need to learn a new skill, whether you are 30 or 60. So when we challenge and push our brains to learn new skills, it's making connection. So if you have to teach your grandmoms mobile phone with the soft touch and how to use WhatsApp and all. A 60 years old definitely know nowadays, they're very tech savvy. But after 70, you have to teach. For them, it's learning a new skill. So definitely the brain chemistry is going to make new connections. And it's very healthy, they say, that you need to read, you need to cultivate new skills. After certain age, you need to have new skills learned every year to see that your brain does not, this dynamic process never stops. It's very important. This dynamic process have to be kept alive.
Ma'am, we have a question.
Yes.
How focus be adapted in a ADHD kid? Sorry. How can focus in an ADHD kid improve?
Yes, so ADHD kids have more, they have, this is a neurobiological problems, and the ADHD kids has the chemicals released in the brain are in very high quantity. So he cannot control his hyperactivity and his spontaneity and impulsivity. So he has to be trained, like how we train our brains to slow down. We first will have to give him a lot of physical activity. The physical activity will deplete his energy and will calm him down. Secondly, we need to give him smaller tasks, very small tasks where the concentration is there for 6 minutes, 10 minutes, according to the developmentally appropriate age. We'll have to teach him how to color code, how to stay on task, give him motivation, have eye contact constantly with him. And at times when the ADHD is very high up on a scale of 34 to 34, we may also use medications. In fact, abroad, they use ADHD patch. They use it in our country. ADHD patch. And of course, with ADHD kids, we have a lot of success. In fact, if the kid has ADHD and if it's brought under control, he could be the most creative kids. All the inventions and innovations are these kind of kids who have excessive energy. But this energy has to be channelized, otherwise it will turn into antisocial behavior. I hope I've answered this question.
Another question. Is the pandemic going to affect child brain development?
Yes, if you ask me, yes, it will. It's going to have a lot of mental repercussions on the child. That is why, as a head of an institution, I keep on telling parents also that we have to keep on the stimulation going, never mind if it's on the virtual world. In fact, we are thinking of a transition process, getting at least 3 to 4 kids to school to make them see the school, to interact with them, even with the mask and without physical contact. The pandemic, research will, after 5 years, you will have all the research coming out, what have been the good and the bad effects of pandemic. But according to it, if the brain has not got stimulation at home during the pandemic, or it has not got interactions, or in the virtual world, it has not got the interactions, then definitely it's going to take a backseat. So pandemic will bring, and mental trauma to the kids is very high because they need their friends. They need to see other kids, especially the month of April, May was very bad for the kids. Now at least there is some kind of movement in the city, in every city. So they are seeing kids, they're going down to the society to play. And of course, some kids are still not being deprived of it. But I think research, more than me, I think the research will tell us later on what is happening. And NIMHANS is already coming out with also a lot of research already that what this 6 months has done to the kids. It's our National Institute of Mental Health in Bangalore. Next question, Batul.
Ma'am, regarding play, how effective is the online games, the screen time and?
Screen time is not a play to me and to all the psychologists. You have to give a healthy screen time, not more than an hour and 15 minutes for a kindergarten kid. Maximum to 1.5 hours, but not screen time games, not PUBGs and video games. The games are Visually not helping the brain. Everything is coded out there. If you do this, you'll do this. If you do this, you'll do this. It's not stimulating the brain. It's a program. It's a machine. The brain does not need a machine. It needs stimulation. It's okay to give the kids, but not like all the time you are on screen. If you won't eat, you put nursery rhymes on the screen. If you are going in a train, you give the child the mobile and the child is on the screen. Carry 5 homemade games for him now and see what fun he has. But you have to give that time. So during the travel, during it, I'm not saying 24/7 or 12/7, but the kids need it, that they need those little interactions. But screen time, not more than the stipulated time described by the National Health Authorities. Next.
Ma'am, that's all the questions we have.
So I think we are on time. It's 5:45 and we wanted to end it by 5:30, 5:45. We're very much on time. Thank you, audience, for being there. We had a wonderful time today, and I hope you go back with understanding the brain architecture, understanding the early experiences and stimulation. Hope if you're a parent out there sitting, hope you have, as a parent, you will do a lot of things. Whichever kindergarten you put your child, see that you see the program well and understand that whether the kindergarten is doing that. And as early childhood facilitators who are hearing me, hope you understand that you need to do a lot of things with your kindergarten children. And I'm very happy that our school is doing a whole lot of these activities. Thank you so much.
Because I think everybody's mind will be on this question. Is virtual learning will help in brain development?
Virtual learning partially will help in brain development, but virtual learning cannot only help in brain development. So if this learning is happening at home, it's happening now because of this pandemic and we don't have choice. Because if no learning takes place, there will be complete shutdown. So if virtual learning is taking place, with the help of virtual learning, what I would request parents and teachers to do is, whatever the child has done with the teacher in the virtual world, strengthening it by doing at home in the real world when you are with the kids. So that is why we say today there are 2 educators in the child life, the teacher and the parent. The parent role has come back as an educator, at least in this pandemic, which was never there. The parent was always the caregiver for food, house, clothing, and of course, little on the education. But today, it's become important. Virtual learning is good because if virtual learning doesn't take place, you can imagine what happens to the brain. But it has to be supplemented with the learning at home, which is hands-on, more creative, more stimulating. So this is what I would talk about. But 1.5 hours of watching learning is good. Thank you for attending and thank you so much.